Chapter 2. Adrian. The moment she stepped out of the elevator, I scented her. It drifted through the vent in the ceiling like heat from a flame. Slow, subtle, unmistakable. Cardamom, cream, a slow-burning sweetness that curled low through the air. Rich and decadent, warm like skin left too long in sun. It slid down my spine like a hand, slow and lingering, until it coiled tight behind my ribs. I stood motionless in the corner of my office, staring at the security feed on the wall. The cameras fed silently across a 6-screen array, but only one mattered. Center screen. There she was. Small frame, hips that moved with a sway she probably didn't even realize she had. She stepped into my kitchen like she belonged there. Like the air belonged to her. Like the room hadn't just gone still in response to her scent. My kitchen, my floor, my territory. And she scented like mine. The reaction was instant, violent. A pulse of heat bloomed across my shoulders, down my spine. My throat tightened. My fingers curled reflexively, nails biting into my palms. Heat stirred low, and my cock throbbed behind my zipper before I even realized I was getting hard. Years. I'd spent years controlling it, suppressing it, dosing it down with inhibitors, regulating every violent edge of my rut until I was nothing but polished stone. But she cut through it in a second. No pheromonal spike, no tease, no come-hither glances or calculated flirt. She hadn't done a thing. Just walked into the room and breathed, and I felt her. Felt the heat of her like it was mine to take, mine to claim. "Who is she?" I asked. Winston Hale, my personal assistant and head of private security operations, stood 3 steps behind, silent as always, tablet in hand and a slight crease between his brows that rarely disappeared. "Layla Rose, culinary student, Starling City Institute of Culinary Arts, top of her class, Omega." I didn't need the last part. My body already knew. She moved with care. No flair, no performance, just clean, practiced hands and quiet control. Her eyes were wide, but she didn't fumble. Not once. I looked away from the screen and crossed the room to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. It was still winter. My reflection followed me in the glass, tall, broad, every line of my black shirt pressed flat, cuffs fastened, collar still closed. I kept myself sharp, always. Trimmed dark blonde hair, beard neat, body tuned. Nothing about me was out of place. Nothing allowed to be. Which was why the burn in my chest unsettled me. It wasn't supposed to happen. Not anymore. I thought the applicants were supposed to be screened, I said, staring down at the street below. "She passed every level of clearance," Winston replied. "No flagged medical indicators, no unmedicated heat patterns, no known compatibility markers." I turned slowly. Winston always looked calm, even when he wasn't. He was a beta, which helped. Neutral in every way. No instinctive reaction to my scent. No discomfort in my presence. He wore a gray suit today, slim cut, as precise as his posture. His dark brown skin was smooth, always clean-shaven, and his sharp jaw made him look more like a model than the quiet beta who ran half of my personal world. Winston didn't just manage schedules or meetings. He handled press leaks before they happened, intercepted threats before they reached my office, and made sure every person in my penthouse staff knew I didn't like to be touched, surprised, or interrupted. He was calm, methodical, and completely unshakable. One of the few people who could enter my office without knocking and survive it. "She triggered my rut," I said. He blinked once. "That hasn't happened in—" He trailed off. Calculating. 2 years, I said flatly. The last time I'd been reckless, younger, dumber, and surrounded by people who thought rut was a convenient mating tool, an advantage, a leverage point. I'd learned rut was vulnerability, rut was weakness, and now I was standing here, pulse hammering, because a student intern walked into my building and smelled like fire and silk and whatever the hell the word belong tastes like. Winston didn't speak for a moment. Then, softly, "Would you like me to have her replaced?" The question was professional, not judgmental. I turned back toward the screens. Layla stood next to Mason, chopping vegetables. She moved with quiet rhythm. Her shoulders were relaxed. Her scent didn't spike with fear. She wasn't performing. She wasn't aware. That made it worse. "No," I said finally. "She stays." Winston tapped something into his tablet, but I didn't miss the shift in his posture. I narrowed my eyes. "You disapprove." He didn't answer, not directly.
"You've got eyes on you right now," he said. "The Starling Reach expansion project. One misstep, and Wexler will use it to wedge in. And Caroline."
"I don't care what Caroline thinks," I snapped.
"She still believes the engagement was delayed, not dissolved."
"She's delusional," Winston sighed.
"Delusional people with wealthy parents tend to get press."
I ignored him. My attention pulled back to the screen. Mateo was plating the lunch course. Nothing complicated. A pan-seared halibut with roasted fennel and Meyer lemon cream. Delicate, elegant, not Mateo's usual flavor profile. I knew, without asking, that it was her creation. He came in a few minutes later with a small tray, the covered plate, a folded linen napkin, silver cutlery. He didn't speak as he set it down on the table near the window and lifted the lid. Steam rose in a gentle curl. I sat down. The scent was subtle, layered, citrus and sweetness, salt and heat. The fish was golden and crisp at the edges. The sauce pooled around it like silk. I cut into it and took the first bite. I set the fork down slowly, not because I was finished, but because I needed a second to process what I'd just tasted. The halibut had fallen apart with barely any pressure. The fennel was sweet, but not limp, roasted just enough to give it a little bite, a little edge. Lemon wove through everything, bright but never loud. And underneath it all, there was warmth, subtle, comforting, steady, the kind of heat that lingered on the tongue without ever burning. Nothing was overdone. Nothing fought for attention. I took another bite. Then another. Each one landed with the same quiet, deliberate balance, like the dish had been built slowly, with care, with focus, like someone had shaped it with the expectation that whoever ate it would pay attention. There was something about that kind of confidence, not flashy or aggressive, just certain. It hit harder than I expected. I felt it low in my chest, that strange flicker of heat under the skin, sharp, unwelcome. Her scent wasn't in the dish. Not really, but it felt like her. Not in a way I could explain to anyone else. It was in the discipline, the restraint, the clarity. This wasn't a plate designed to show off. It was personal. Food made for one set of hands, one set of eyes. I finished the last piece slowly, dragging it through the sauce, letting it coat my tongue, tasting every last detail until all that was left was a clean plate and the trace of lemon and sea salt in the air. Then I realized I was still holding the fork. I sat back, slow breath in my chest, pulse steady but heavy. It had been years since I'd tasted anything like that, and somehow, that unsettled me more than the hunger ever had. I reached for the notepad beside me, a small stack of blank cards kept near the window for personal messages or business meetings. I tore one off and wrote 2 words in black ink. Do it again. Later, I handed it to Mateo when he returned. He raised one brow but said nothing, just took the plate and the note and left. Winston stepped in after, carrying a leather portfolio tucked under one arm and his tablet in the other. Always precise. "She stays," I repeated. Winston gave a short nod and finally left me alone. I sat in the silence, the scent of fennel and lemon still lingering in the air. Everything about this was a mistake. I knew it. But I was already looking forward to tomorrow.